Hello, what's up? Today we are going to talk about a plant that is commonly known as the sundew. That refers to plants that belong to the taxonomical genus of Drosera. While sundews share the same taxonomical family as the Venus flytrap, which is another type of small carnivorous plant, they both belong to the family of Droseraceae, where they both share a really similar growth habit and the structure of the plant is generally quite similar. Sundews or droseras manage to capture prey by secreting a really sticky, watery substance on those tentacle-like organs on their leaves. Once an animal felt on top of their leaves, then they would get stuck there and then their leaves would generally roll backwards, roll inwards in order to consume that prey. Just like most other carnivorous plants, their size is relatively small, which means the diameter of a Drosera plant never or rarely gets over 1 foot, and the height of the plant is also usually within 1 foot. Besides getting their energy from consuming animals, Droseras can still get some of their energy from regular photosynthesis. They still have chlorophyll, and they can still get some of their energy, their nutrients, from regular sunlight. By the way, where are Droseras native to? They are usually found on swamplands, boglands, or marshlands, and because their natural metabolism requires a lot of water, that means a lot of water or moisture would get evaporated out of those plants, and they also need a lot of water to continuously produce that sticky, watery substance that allows them to capture prey. So they can only be found growing on swampy, soggy, wet soils that contains a tiny amount or even no nutrients. And the prey items that they are most likely to capture are terrestrial small insects such as ants and termites. Sundews can be found in basically every continent in the world except Antarctica. There are certain species of them that are adapted to tropical and subtropical climates that are less cold resistant but more heat resistant, and there are also some species that are more adapted to temperate climates, that they are smaller in size and they are also more frost resistant. Despite that all sundews share a similar growth habit and feeding habit, they are short single-stemmed plants that the foliage always radiates out from a single center point. They can still differ a lot in terms of the shape depending on the species. For example, this species is the common Eurasian sundew, that the leaves are really small and they're rounded, and this species is a type of sundew that came from South Africa, especially the mountainous highlands of South Africa, and they've got really long and slender foliages, and their sticky tentacles tend to face downwards instead. Well, sundews are only one type of carnivorous plants out of many other types. Considering the fact that plants actually developed the ability to consume animals in order to compensate for the lack of energy or nutrients that they can get from the environment 9 times independently throughout the history of life on Earth. And when sundews are put into comparison with the Asian pitcher plant, another type of small carnivorous plant that is widely cultivated by humans, this time carnivory is entirely a result of convergent evolution. In terms of how sundews reproduce, they reproduce by flowers which are pollinated by insects, and the flowers often sit on top of relatively long stalks that are far away from their leaves, and they've got 5 petals for each flower, and they are also monoecious, which means the plant is both a male and a female at the same time. So the fruits are actually seed capsules, which they would open naturally once they're ripened, just like that of a bean pod, and the seeds of the Drosera plant is also really tiny. They're usually as small as or even smaller as grains of Sahara sand. Their seeds are typically distributed by the wind, and the small light seeds also allows them to travel huge distances. Despite that most species of Droseras are not endangered or threatened species yet, but their natural habitats are often being damaged by human activities. For example, the increasing amounts of droughts caused by unsustainable agricultural practices would actually cause the swamplands or marshlands to shrink in size drastically, and most of them are really intolerant of dry conditions. The increasing amount of floodings caused by climate change would also be hugely detrimental to them. The development of urban and suburban areas around swampy or coastal regions are destroying a lot of their native habitats. And finally, the organic pollutants that came from farmlands are extremely dangerous to them because they would actually die once too much nutrients got washed into the soil that they grows on. So Droseras need your help, but how can you help them now? To be more specific, what are the life uses of these plants? What are the uses that does not involve harvesting or killing of these plants? To be honest, they can be really useful when being grown as an indoor houseplant. They are so small that they don't take up a lot of space, and they can also help capture insects. And their seeds also germinate quite easily. All it takes is warm conditions and a lot of water. And the best soil for them would be highly acidic but poor draining soil. Soils that can store a lot of water. You can also plant them inside used plastic or glass containers. If you just want them to capture more mosquitoes or flies, insects that can fly instead of insects that are based on the land, you can try to plant them inside a transparent but open-topped glass container and just plant them as far low as possible. That can prevent ants from falling into them, but that can also help attract those mosquitoes and flies, because naturally they would want to find a warm place to hide or to seek shelter once the weather is too cold or too windy. Droseras are also quite delicate and exotic when it comes to the appearance, so they are quite aesthetically pleasing to look at. They can also be planted together with mosses, lichens, or small ferns, just like how most of them grow in their native or natural habitat. Just like growing most other carnivorous plants, one thing that you should not do when growing Droseras is to put mulch or to put organic fertilizers, because they would die once there is just too much nutrients in the soil, and also mulching would actually kill them or just cover them, shade them to death because they are usually so short. Despite that carnivorous plants like them only make up a tiny percent of all the biomass on Earth, but they played a really unique and important role in the ecosystem and the history of evolution, the history of life on Earth itself, so they deserve to be conserved. And once again, thank you for watching. If you like the type of content that we do on this channel, then please feel free to like, share, and subscribe.